Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob. Thank you for joining me. This is Hunt Detail, and we are staring August in the face. It's hard to believe. In the western states, pronghorn, uh, mule deer open up in late August, and for me personally, and here in the east, I mean, we have whitetail opening up in certain states in September, and that's exciting. I mean, wow, it's scary and exciting at the same time. For me, I've mentioned this before. I'm headed out west to hunt elk in early September. And on a personal note, I feel a little bit behind the eight ball. I feel a little bit of heat. I have Last year at this time, I had my shooting, my e-scouting, my physical prep really dialed in. This time of year, or this time around, I feel a little bit less dialed in with all three of those areas. I mean, from a physical standpoint, I'm I do strength training every day. It's sort of like, brushing your teeth or something. Like I just have to do it. And so I am constantly doing strength training every day, but then I will run 2 days on, 1 day off with about 20 pounds on my back, and I wear sort of the glove shoes. I think I've mentioned this before, to really strengthen my feet in that process, because I feel like that's an area that I hadn't done before. I'd run in running shoes, and running shoes are just like these big foam blocks where your feet hardly move at all. But when you run in those glove shoes, you're using more of the musculature of your foot. And so I did that last year. That really helped. But this year I'm running with weight. I do feel like I'm not running. I'm not running as far. I know that. And I think part of it is predicated on the amount of time that I have. I feel very limited in the amount of time. I have a lot of projects, including this podcast, and it's and so instead of running for, you know, an hour and a half, I'm running for an hour or whatever. I don't know. But anyways, I think from an e-scouting standpoint, last year I had a general tag, and so I felt like I had to really dive in more, and because I had to figure out what units I was going to hunt, because with a general tag in a western state, you usually have a bunch of different units to choose from. And then from a and so in this case I have 5 units, and it's sort of like I have a fishbowl, and where the fish are, I just have to find them. But there's also going to be a bunch of other dudes in the same fishbowl. And so for me, I got to learn the road systems on a very granular level. The better you understand the road systems, the better that you can get away from pressure, at least from folks that are non-residents. Because if you think about it, like locals know the road systems, these roads that are blocked, the gravel roads, the roads that are inaccessible, they know that. But the non-residents like me don't. And if I can understand that at a high level, then it helps me get away from some of the more popular areas, or the more accessible areas, from those, maybe folks that brought horses, or folks that have big wall tents, or whatever. And I got to be able to pivot to either hunt 10 miles back, 5 mile back, or 5 miles back, or to hunt next to the road. And so that's where, like, I got to elevate my e-scouting. And then from a shooting standpoint, I like to shoot out to 70. That's the max on my bow because of the weight of my arrows. If I had lighter arrows, I could probably get my bow to my sight pin to go out to 100 yards or whatever. But it's uh, I haven't completely dialed that in yet, and I need to get that done, because I feel like if I can shoot out to 70 really well, like sort of softball, paper plate size, then obviously your 50 becomes an easier shot. Your 50 feels like a 30. Uh, so that's sort of where things are on a personal level. I mean, in addition to that, I'm trying to get things dialed in at work. I want to make sure that when I leave, I'm not thinking about work. I'll still stay connected on some level to email, but I want to stay um, I want to be able to put that to bed. And the same thing with things at home. I also, I like to sort of zig when others are zagging. And right now it's hot and muggy and there's mosquitoes and it's just a buggy time of year. And I like to, I've made some changes with my muzzleloader and my slug gun, and I've been working on getting those dialed back in so that come December, I'm not scrambling. Yeah, and I feel confident. I have the same level of confidence like I described with shooting my bow right now with my slug setup and with my muzzleloader. And so I now's the time, if you haven't or if you're not, is to get out to the gun range and get those things dialed in, even if it's uncomfortable. There's going to be less people there. The other thing is, if you can get your ammo now, get your black powder, get your slugs, stock up on those things, because if in October, November, it's going to be difficult to get those things. You're going to, or you might have to order it and wait. And so I do want to put that out there, because I tend to do this with a lot of the things in terms of prep, as I'm trying to think 6 months in advance. And I did that with some of the gear I bought. I bought some cold weather gear this year, and I bought it when it was on clearance a couple months ago, because I'm like, okay, I was cold last January when I was hunting out of a tree stand, and I bought a one of those heated vests that were on clearance for, I think, like $60 or something. And I thought, it seems weird to buy this right now. I don't really feel like I need it, but I know in December, whether it's on me or whether, one of my kids is wearing it, it'll come in handy. And so that's where things are on sort of a personal level. Lots to do, lots to prep for, but also very exciting. And it's just, looking forward to all that the hunting seasons have to offer. Last week, over the past couple of weeks, I've talked about cell cams and I've talked about technology. So there's been sort of a tech theme, and I'm going to kind of continue this. But before I do, I wanted to mention something that came across my radar. And I have no sponsorship, no affiliation, no connection to this author, but it's a book that I want to offer up uh, for free. And I will, let's just say, I guess I'm going to limit it to maybe the first 10. Let's just do the first 10. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll do more of that. But there's a book written by a guy by the name of John Tyson, and you can look it up on Amazon. And the book is The Intentional Father. And if you're listening to this and you're a dad, I would encourage you to pick it up. It's one of those books that where you're like, if you grab a book and you're like, gosh, I wish I would have had that a decade ago. It's one of those things. And as a father of two myself, I try to live with intentionality. I one of the reasons why I haven't, you know, I don't have all the stuff dialed, that I mentioned, like my archery, my bow or my e-scouting or my physical prep, is because I'm trying to be a balanced and intentional father. I'm not perfect at it. I came across this book. I started reading it. I'm about a quarter of the way through, or maybe a third, and it's really, really encouraging. It's really, really good. And I think in this day and age of technology, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, it's easier to check out of engagement with our kids. And so and even if you're a father and and your kids are fully grown, I would encourage you to check out this book, because it really, I think, resonates at this time where there's a lot of passivity in our culture, a lot of passive dads out there. And I can be that way myself. And so if you go to the Hunt Detail Instagram feed or Instagram page, go to Hunt Detail, message me, and give Hunt Detail a follow, and message me directly. And just give me your address. I'll put a copy of this in the mail for you. It's that meaningful. I'm going to do it for at least 10 folks. And again, it's There's no strings attached other than just following the Hunt Detail on Instagram. I'll drop it. I'll order it from Amazon and have it directly shipped to you from Amazon. So just wanted to put that on out there because it's just, again, I have no affiliation, no sponsorship with Mr. Tyson or anything like that. But so let's talk about technology. So if you go back in time, I'm going to go back to the late 90s when I worked at a Ticketmaster outlet. It was a CD store. And when a concert when a concert or a sporting event, especially concerts, when those tickets were on sale, there were a line of people outside of that store. And I would open up the store and let those people in at some point, and then the tickets would go on sale like at 9 a.m. or whatever. And if no one showed up, I could look and see like, oh, this concert in this nearby city is going on. I might grab tickets for that front row or second row or whatever because no one was in line. And the access to information was so limited that even if you knew about a concert that was happening, sometimes it was word of mouth from a friend because there was no texting. I think maybe there was email, but there was no texting, and the internet wasn't what it was, and you couldn't buy tickets via like Ticketmaster.com. And as things began to accelerate, um, information became more widely available, and here we are. We can get access to so much in terms of experiences. I mean, obviously, we can watch concerts online, but you can the pool of people that were competing back then. Maybe if you were competing with, maybe it was 100, maybe it was 1,000, maybe it was 10,000, but now it's like 100,000. And so and I'll take it to another area. If you think about like golfing, if you golf, and these are like if it's a public course, if it's open to the public, all the best public courses, are well known now. Whereas before, maybe you had a public course that was your favorite and people didn't really know about it. Or if you were into surfing, all the weather patterns are well known now, and so now all the best surfing is well known now, and the spot that you used to surf, which I've never surfed, but I think about it in that regard that those secret spots or those best spots are no longer secrets, and now you have to compete with other guys surfing in those areas, and maybe they're non-resident surfers, who knows. And the same thing goes with like mountain biking. If you think about any sort of hobby, there are less and less secrets. And then on a personal note, when we've gone to a lot of national parks. If you want to go to Yellowstone, you have to really plan that. Lodging goes on sale a year in advance. You have to nail that down pretty quickly. If we went to Zion National Park in Utah. Angel's Landing is a very popular hike. It's very dangerous, but that's what makes it so popular. Well, when we went, you didn't have to have a reservation or anything like that, but you do now because it's not a secret anymore. This year, we went to Yosemite National Park. We hiked Half Dome. Half Dome is this huge granite structure. It's amazing. It has cables that allow you to help you hike to the very top. It's a very intense hike. In fact, a young woman, a 20-year-old, just died recently. This in July, she fell off Half Dome because it was raining, and it's obviously a terrible tragedy. But my point in talking about Half Dome is that place is no longer a secret. And so they limit the amount of hikers to the top to 300. And so you put in for a lottery. I put in for a preseason lottery, and my family didn't get drawn. I put in for the daily lottery, and we did get drawn. And thankfully, we got to hike this thing. But all of the secrets are becoming more and more available to everyone that wants to know about them. And so again, as I shared in that example, your circle of 1,000 people that you're competing with, or 100, is now 10,000 or 100,000. And if you look at where hunting is going, when I went hunting for pronghorn out west in 2016, there was maybe 10 videos on YouTube on hunting pronghorn, and none of them were affiliated with the state that I was going to. I was trying to figure out the terrain to even know where to find pronghorn. And so there was very little information in 2016. And then when I went out west for my first elk hunt in 2018, also, again, it was very little information. And Corey Jacobson had just launched his Elk 101, but beyond that, it was, and there was Google Earth, of course, but there wasn't a lot of Facebook groups. There probably were some forums that I wasn't a part of. There probably was some of that information, but now there is a lot more information. So it brings down sort of the barriers to entry into these experiences. And I use the platform of Go Hunt, and I use Hunting Fool, and there are other platforms out there. I think Epic maybe might be one, or Eastman's Tag Hub. I don't use those, but if you look at Go Hunt, they have information on the Dakotas. They have information on Kansas. If you look at Hunt and Fool, they have information on Vermont, Maine, and Iowa. And so the question is, how do these organizations grow? Where do you think they're going to go next? I mean, it's great for me when I go out west. It's great because it helps me understand where to go. But boy, it's not great for that guy that lives out west because he sees my out-of-state vehicle at his trailhead, and I'm tromping through his favorite spot. And so I'm a bit of a hypocrite here, but what I see in the future for hunting in the East is getting more and more granular to where it's your state and your county and your piece of public land that websites like this or other resources pop up to provide access through a paywall to access to information on your favorite hunting area, your favorite piece of public. And I don't know if there's any way to stop it, but what I want to encourage you to do is to slow it down. And so here's what I hear and see that concerns me. So there are podcasts that are specifically designed to highlight or shed light on specific pieces of public land. And I think, I'm going to mention the state of Ohio. And if you hunt Ohio, if you live in Ohio, or if you if you plan on going to Ohio this year to hunt, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know exactly where I'm talking about. And it's that place is unfortunately on the radar now, whereas a few years ago it wasn't. But enough people talk about it, that particular area of Ohio, enough people talk about it, and then it becomes well known. And it's unfortunate because I feel bad for folks that hunt that area and that have hunted it in the past and had success, because their favorite spots are now getting more pressure than they have ever gotten. And part of it, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, is elevating your game. And I mentioned it, as it relates to my elk hunt. I am trying to elevate my game to a point where, when I have to deal with pressure, I'm a better shooter, I'm a better e-scouter, and I'm more physically prepared to hunt in a variety of different ways. But now I think over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see that happen in the East. And I've reached out to people that do these podcasts and to people that post these things online and say, this isn't good. This isn't good for hunting. if this is an area that, I mean, well, it's not, I mean, and again, this is the hypocrite in me. It's not good for folks in the East. I mean, I love it when I go out West. It's great. But I don't like it in the East because it impacts me personally. And none of us, and so I'm just talking to you all is if you do live in the East and you have, I mean, it's only going to get worse out West. It's going to get more granular out West. I think, like I described I mean, even into, sort of county specific, that sort of thing, but it's going to get more granular out East. And so if you're one of those that feel the way that I feel about this, what I would encourage you to do is to not share information. And I had this happen a couple years ago where I had a guy, I killed a nice buck. He was looking at it. Where'd you get it? And I just said, I don't actually share that information. It's just not how I hunt. And he was sort of surprised, but I said, yeah, it's just I like where I hunt and I don't want to talk about it and I don't want to draw attention to it. I'm sure you don't want to share, your favorite spot. And when you do that, if I were to give that guy my exact area, it was an area, it's an area that I've developed over the years through failure. It's an area that I've developed over the years through, sweat and sweat equity. And if I do that, if I say, well, actually, this is what's going on in this area, the does are here, the bucks are here, and this is how, sort of they move. And this is a big old piece of big woods public land. And if I show him on a map, I'm really robbing him of the experience of that success. And no one held my hand to figure this out. I had to again put sweat equity into it and figure it out. And so I've the feedback that I've gotten from some of these podcasters and these people on Facebook groups that sort of talk about these big pieces of public land, and some of which I don't even hunt, so I don't have a dog in the fight. But the feedback is that, well, I'm mentoring, I'm helping others the way that I've been helped. I know that sort of feels good, right? It feels good to help people. It feels good to mentor. It feels like you're doing the right thing. It feels like, yeah, this is how I hunt this area, or this is what you need to do, or this is how. And I would say, yeah, help them sight in their bow and help them get their gear dialed in and help them, do some of those things. But when it comes to actually, uh, a particular spot or a piece of public land, I just think that they need to discover that on their own. And there's a process there that we all go through, that they need to go through. And if you're tempted to post a big buck online that you've shot and you start telling people where the piece of public land that you got it, or you want to put a picture in front of the sign that is the piece of public land, I would encourage you to not, because it's not going to help your experience in the long run. And for the next few years, you're going to feel that pressure because you sort of, you know, showed people where to go, or suggested where to go. And I personally just don't share that information. I might post a pic on Instagram. I don't do it on Facebook. I try to make sure that there's nothing in the background that's an identifying characteristic of the area that I'm in. And I sure as heck don't share, where I shot it, or where it's from, or even the state. And that's why you never hear me talk much about states. I mean, I hunt a lot of, I hunt in state, I hunt out of state, but I just don't really talk about it because I think I don't really want to rob folks of that experience of sort of the same thing that we all go through. I remember a decade, maybe 15 years ago, it was sort of a joke when I would go out and hunt. I was trying to learn the things that I was never taught when I was younger on how to hunt deer. And, this was when I was living in Pennsylvania, so I'll mention that state. And I had camera picks, I did have some encounters, but it just wasn't, I wasn't there yet. I hadn't fully figured out, what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong. And I didn't have a saddle then. I was hunting with a big climber tree stand, and so that made it a bit more difficult. But ultimately, there's a process there, and I think that I just want to encourage you to help others learn that process by maybe you help them with some aspects of it, but when it comes to boots on the ground, that's an opportunity for them to experience success and failure on their own terms. So that's my soapbox for today. You may disagree with it, and I understand that, and that's okay. And again, I am calling myself out as a hypocrite because again, I do use those platforms, but I do see where things are going, and if we can help slow the spread of some of this, I would say it's by just keeping our secrets to ourselves. So best of luck. Get out there, get those things dialed in as hunting season gets closer, and we'll talk next week. Thanks again, and talk to you then.